Thank you so much, Indra, for this very inspiring talk. Now, Andri, I have to start with you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The chairman and the CEO of PepsiCo is a rather busy person, I assume. How in the world did you convince Indra to come to Iceland?
Well, that's a valid question. And I must say that, I had this dream for many, many years. And I could, of course, come up with a long answer here. But to cut a long story short, I sent her an invitation card, which is, of course, natural. But it was a video. And do you want to look at it?
Please.
Let's take a look at the video.
Let's show the room.
Hello, Mrs. Nui. This is a short message from a Pepsi bottler in Iceland. This year we're celebrating our 100th anniversary. As part of the celebrations for this milestone, we've established 100 corporate social responsibility projects and are dedicating 100 million Icelandic krona towards different CSR programs. One of the highlights of the anniversary will be a conference we're holding for our most important customers. The reason for this message is that we would like you to come to Iceland to be a keynote speaker at our conference. We want to make Iceland the #1 Pepsi country in the world. We ask you to inspire us by coming here. To give you a short introduction to Iceland, it's a little island in the North Atlantic, first settled in 874 by the Viking Ingólfur Arnarson. Our company is named after one of the most famous Vikings, and we like to act like Vikings, to win every fight and conquer new territories. We were the first nation to vote for a female president in 1980, and for women in Iceland, everything is possible. President, Prime Minister, Bishop, CEO. Been there, done that. We've been the Pepsi bottler here since 1992. We're proud of the brand and our relationship with PepsiCo. Historically, Iceland has long been a Coke turf. Atlanta used to brag about having the world's highest consumption rate per capita in both Mexico and Iceland. This is no longer the case. In the space of 10 years, we've managed to increase our market share in the cola category from less than 15% to over 41% last year. The Pepsi Max consumption here is now only second to Norway, with 18 liters being consumed per capita. We have a simple mission. PBC. Pepsi bigger than Coke. We want to make Pepsi the biggest cola in Iceland. We not only bottle Pepsi products, we also import Doritos, Lay's, Gatorade, and Quaker products. And by doing that, we're able to execute the power of one with great excellence. For example, we sold 21 snack bags last year to each and every Icelander. That's 1.4 kilos per capita and 4.4 kilos to every home in Iceland. We're doing great things up here in the north, but we want to do even better. It would therefore be a great honor for us to welcome you and your family to Iceland this fall. We'll be able to adjust the timing in accordance with your busy schedule. It's our hope that you'll be inspired by this video, our country, and our ambition. We really hope to see you in Iceland. Takk og bless.
So I get this video, all right? I've never received a video like this, inviting me so warmly with a wonderful Icelandic accent. Never had this. Music playing in the background. Typically, when I'm going to visit a country, they'll go, oh, Dragon Lady's coming to visit the country, okay? And so here somebody actually wants me to come and visit, right? Because having a CEO visit is not fun, because there's a lot of work involved. She's going to ask a lot of tough questions. And here somebody really wants me to visit. I go, I'm going to go visit. So I didn't tell anybody that I'd accepted the invitation. And I think your Icelandic newspaper reported that I was visiting. So it showed up on Google Alert that PepsiCo CEO visiting Iceland. So now all of the guys in the office sending me emails. Indra, I think there's a mistake. They say you're going to Iceland. I go, no, I'm going to Iceland. They say, you're out of your mind. You don't have 2 days. I said, I just made 2 days. I'm going to Iceland. So, Andre, I was coming to Iceland, come what may. It's that video that completely melted my heart. Oh. And thank you. amazing.
Well, we couldn't be more honored to have you here. And thanks for that inspiring speech. I'm sure everyone in this room shares with me that your vision for a more sustainable form of growth is very inspiring for all of us. But can you tell us, when did you start working on performance with purpose, and how has it unfolded? And maybe, if you will, put it a little bit in the context with the fact that most people would agree that Wall Street has a more short-term measurement of what is success today than your vision lens.
You know, it's interesting. I became CEO in 2006. And, you know, typically CEOs take a year or so to decide what their message for the company has to be. But even before I became CEO, when I was president from 2001 to 2006, then became chairman and CEO afterwards. I was always thinking to myself that big companies have a major role to play in society. If we can set the right message and set the right goals, we can take this large company called PepsiCo and really build on its heritage. PepsiCo was always a very good company and build on its heritage, but we needed the right words. We needed a set of words that captured the fact that we are focused on financial performance. We're not talking about sacrificing financial performance, but it, you know, subsumed within that what we need to do both to drive our financial performance and ensure the long-term sustainability of the enterprise. And if you sat back and thought about what we needed to do, we had to transform our portfolio. I was seeing signs that the health and wellness trend was picking up, and we already had the assets in our portfolio. You know, we needed to put that in. The environment was becoming a bigger and bigger issue. In many countries of the world which are water distressed, it's very hard to get a license to build a new factory. So clearly that was an area that we had to worry about: water usage, plastic usage. You know, landfills were getting filled up, so we had to worry about plastic usage. And if you did those right, it helped the bottom line. And at the end of it, you know, when you go to Hollywood or a talent studio, they talk about people as their assets. You know, that's how it should be for companies like us too. You can buy all the machinery, you can have all the brands, but they can only be built because of people. So our people have to become our assets, our first set of assets. So how do you make sure we truly make PepsiCo people feel that they're part of this company, they never want to leave? How do you create that environment in the company? So you put the three together. I think within the first 3 months after I became CEO, I articulated this notion of performance with purpose, so that we never forget our financial goals and what we have to deliver, but do it with a sense of portfolio transformation, environmental sustainability, and worrying about our people. And the basic message I had to our people was, yes, we need to deliver performance. Let's worry about the level and the duration, because it's very easy for a CEO to say, I'm going to be CEO for 5 years. Pick a number. And for 5 years, you cut all the investments, you drive performance to ridiculous levels. Then after you leave, the next person comes in, takes a huge write down, and starts again, delivering what they call alpha. I think that's a wrong way to operate a company, and it's a wrong way to create shareholder value. So I was focused on level of performance and duration of performance. You have to run this company for the next century. And the only way to do it is a keen eye to long-term sustainability of the enterprise. That's how performance and purpose came about. Came from the heart.
Clearly. Andri, when did you decide to do the 100 CSR goals, and why on the 100-year anniversary?
It seems, like a natural way, really. When we were thinking about celebrating the 100 years, of course, we wanted to invite Indra, but we wanted to do something special. And, a few years ago, we started seriously working on the social responsibility projects. And, to put it in numbers and give it the extra push, we kind of, put it under the umbrella 100, initiatives, and we dedicated this 100 million. And, the 100-year anniversary is just a perfect, platform for really pushing it, to get the engagement that we needed from the staff and get the attention, from the public. So it just seemed natural.
But Indra, it's already been mentioned, you're leading an organization that counts about as many people as our entire country. And you're leading it across businesses, across markets, across different functions. How do you effectively do that? And maybe if you could add on to that, what qualities do you look for in your key leadership team?
I think the only way you can run such a large enterprise, they're so far-flung because we are in about 200 countries around the world. First, you've got to have great people. People who live the PepsiCo dream, people who live the PepsiCo values, who can change it and shape it if needed, but phenomenal executives, and I'll talk about that some more. But supporting them is a set of values and code of conduct that PepsiCo stands for, because around the world, PepsiCo has got to be PepsiCo. You cannot be different companies. You've got to have the core framework and the value system of PepsiCo, but then you adapt yourself locally from a face and a business perspective. So let's start with the people. I think PepsiCo is always known to be a talent academy. You were part of it, Hala. You were there, so it was a talent academy. We have phenomenal people. I don't know what it is about the company. Anybody who's at PepsiCo is youthful, is exciting, and even new recruits that walk in the door for an interview will say, after they've joined PepsiCo, we walked in wishing you'd give us a job, because even though we had competing offers, we wanted the offer from PepsiCo, because you walk in the corridors of PepsiCo, there's a excitement about the place. And last night I was telling Andre and Octo, where's Octo? Where's he?
Out there.
Ah, there you are. I was telling both of you a story, and in PepsiCo we were doing an SAP implementation. A large company to do an SAP implementation takes a lot of people and many, many years. So we started this project in 2001. There were about 1,200 people we'd taken out of PepsiCo and Accenture, the big firm, to do this SAP implementation. And I was talking to the CEO of Accenture. I'd have meetings with him every 6 months or so. And Bill Green, in one of my lunches, was telling me the story. He said, Indra, when Accenture started to work with PepsiCo, the first 6 months, the guys in my team didn't want to work on PepsiCo, because you guys dot every I, cross every T, you're so detail-oriented, you really drive us crazy. Nobody wanted to work on the PepsiCo business. After the first 6 months, I noticed something unusual. When I asked people to work on PepsiCo, nobody complained. Now I have a wait list of people who want to work on PepsiCo. I said, what changed? He said, you made us better. He said, your people are so passionate about the company. They worry about everything about the company. You made Accenture people better. And he said this, he used his hand. He said, you have a special sauce in PepsiCo. I still don't know what that sauce is, but it's there, it's ineffable. He said, you have the special sauce in PepsiCo. Don't ever lose it. And you probably know what I'm talking about, Hala. But this is a special company. I say this because I inherited the leadership from people before me. But it is an unbelievably youthful, exciting, wants to do the right thing, do it the right way, principled, values-driven company. And that's what makes PepsiCo so special in the world, and that's what allows us to attract the best and the brightest and keep building on this talent base that we have.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the 5 C's I know you speak about that you look for when you're choosing somebody worthy of PepsiCo?
It's also evolved over time, because as the world has changed, we have to evolve too. First thing we look for is curiosity. Are they curious? Do they ask the questions? When we were all kids, we would ask questions, why is the sky blue? Why is the bird flying up there? Why is the plane up in the air? As we get older, we stop asking why. We think Google is going to give us all the answers. Not true, not true, not true at all. We have to ask more questions, because the more you ask and the more curious you are, your aperture opens up. You zoom out with every why that you ask. And we want people who ask these whys so that you can get to a richer answer to the problem you're facing. Okay? Because if you redefine the problem, you get to a better answer. Okay? So we look for people who are incredibly curious. We look for people who are creative. In today's world, where we're resource constrained, where expectations versus what you can do are not particularly in sync with each other, we need people who can make $1 go $2. We want people who can stretch resources in incredible ways, who are willing to experiment with innovation from emerging markets into developed markets. So we're looking for people with incredible creativity. The third thing we look for is people with incredible courage. You can have all the creativity, all the curiosity, but if you don't have courage to speak up, who cares? You gotta have courage. We have to provide you an environment to demonstrate the courage, but we want people with courage. We want people to speak up. We want people to push back, question leadership, because sometimes we as leaders become too caught up in our own position and our thoughts. We want people to say, this emperor is not wearing clothes. So to us, courage is very important. The fourth C now is what we talked about as citizenship. If people don't think about how this company should be sitting in society at large, if we have to teach people that, if we have to drag people to that, they don't belong in PepsiCo. Because at the end of the day, how we work in this ecosystem called society is going to determine whether we're successful or not, because every PepsiCo employee leaves PepsiCo and goes home to a community or a country or a city. We cannot be two entities, so citizenship is very important. And the last thing now we are emphasizing more and more is communications. You can do everything, but if you cannot communicate, you can't be a leader. So we want people who can mobilize large groups, who can get them to act on your behalf and get a message forward. So that's what we look for now: curiosity, creativity, courage, citizenship, and communications.
It's very clear. Andre, how does this relate to what you look for and foster in your team at Ölgerðarinnar?
Well, not much to add, actually. This is like spot on. I have, though, very simple mission. It has to be fun at work. So I work with fun people. Almost always, is the case. Friðjón, he's not very funny, but that was a mistake, and now I can't get rid of him. But
we could not get through this meeting without dragging Friðjón into it.
yeah, I know.
All right. But Indra, these are serious times in the world, and if we look around, we have these sort of opposing and competitive forces at play. We have malnutrition on one hand, and then we have obesity issues on the other hand. How is an organization like PepsiCo helping governments, helping the world solve some of these and other sustainability challenges that we're faced with?
You see, companies cannot stand in for governments. We cannot take the role of governments. What we can do is be the engine that brings government programs to bear on society, or we can make changes in our company so we don't add to the problems of society. Those are the two things we can do. So let me start with the first one. Around the world, we do work with governments to see how can we leverage our distribution system, how can we leverage our knowledge to do projects that ultimately could have a commercial value, but in the short term may not. Example would be in a particular state in India, all the women there had anemia, excessive anemia. We realized that it was unique to that community, and we developed a biscuit for them with a lot of iron, but still tasted good, because you can't tell these people, eat this thing that tastes like sawdust, but it's got a lot of iron. Nobody's going to eat it. So we developed a great tasting biscuit with a very heavy iron content. Now, we worked with the government. They gave us a few subsidies because we wanted to get this biscuit to the poorest people in that community who needed it the most. We are a commercial enterprise. We cannot do whatever we want. We're not in the charitable business. So we did this partnership. And now that it's a reality, we can actually scale it up to be a bigger commercial vehicle where we can spread this iron-fortified biscuit to a much larger population. Or we've launched low-cost, vitamin-fortified, it's got a little bit of glucose in it because people who've got malnutrition problems need a little bit of carbohydrate to get going. But again, a low-cost water in a small disposable cup that they can really afford and drink. So we do a lot of projects for, I wouldn't say bottom of the pyramid, but sort of just above the bottom of the pyramid. So we do that in partnership with governments, whether it's DFID in the UK or the United Nations or USAID from the United States. We work with many of these multilateral organizations as part of what we do. And then within our portfolio, we make changes. Dialing up the no sugar part of the portfolio is big.
Yeah.
Searching for next generation sweeteners to go to a naturally sweetened product, because today, people want a clean label. So how do we get to natural sweeteners? creative technologies to reduce sodium levels. That's what we can do. We cannot tell you what to eat or drink. That's personal responsibility. We are not in the nanny business. It's our job to give you great tasting treat products and good for you products. Both affordably priced, both ubiquitously available, both marketed in aspirational ways. You decide what you want to eat or drink. But we don't want to tell you that health costs more. We don't want to tell you that healthy products taste lousy and, treat products taste better. We want to take away that. We want to give you everything and allow you as the consumer to make the decisions. That's the business we're in.
Very impressive, and you can certainly affect a lot of change with this
We're
approach.
trying.
I've heard a very interesting story about one of the things you do as a leader that sets you apart from anybody else, at least I've heard about, and that's that you write personal letters to the parents of the people working for you. And I would really like to know, how did this idea come about, and what's been the impact on you, the people working for you, their parents, and even
Yeah.
PepsiCo as a company?
Controversial in some ways. I'll tell you why in a short while. When I first became CEO, I went back to India to visit my mother. My mother's still alive, and she was there, and my father had passed away, so my mother lived alone. And I usually try not to stay with my mother because you don't have a vacation when you stay with your mother. The minute you land, she pulls out this list of errands you have to run, which all could have been done before I got there, but she had collected them for 1 year for me to come and do it. So I showed up there, and I landed at about 2 o'clock in the morning. She told me to wake up at 7:30. I said, I'm on vacation. I'm not getting up at 7:30. She said, no, you have to wake up, get ready, and just sit in the living room because people will come to call on me and see you. So you have to be dressed. In the Indian culture, if your mother says something, you do not question it. If your parents, if they give you an order, that's it. I wish today's kids, my kids know that. But that's a different question.
Don't we all?
No, okay. My mother says, get ready and sit, you sit. So, I was sitting just where Hala was. And, guests, random people from the neighbor's third cousin showed up. It's like random people showed up. And they'd look at me and say, congratulations, because it's a big deal that somebody was born and brought up the way I was, now CEO of a gigantic company. It was a bit of a shock to the system. So they'd come in and say hello to me, and then they'd go to my mother who was sitting there, and they'd say, oh, Mrs. Krishnamurthy, you're so wonderful to have brought up these kids this way, and aren't you great? Then I realized that I was just the window dressing here. I was just there for, the draw. They were really here to tell my mother what a good job she had done bringing up the kids. And it dawned on me when I got back to the office that all these senior executives who worked for PepsiCo, all the direct reports to me, their parents had never been told how wonderful their kids were, that they've reached such a senior level in a company. And nobody had ever said to them, thank you for the gift of your son or daughter to PepsiCo. So I wrote this story. I told them, I wrote each of the parents a letter which laid out the background of why I'm writing to them, because I didn't want them to get a shock getting a letter from the chairman of that. So I wrote a letter to them, and then I said, your son, XYZ, is doing this job in PepsiCo, and I gave a couple of paragraphs. Each letter was tailor-made for each parent, what the job was, how this person was doing. It was always positive, of course, but what the job they were doing. And I ended by saying, and I just wanted to thank you for the gift of XYZ to PepsiCo. Okay, so I sent this letter to the parents, and it's not just my direct reports. Every time I do a leadership program with a small group of people, I write to the parents of that group of people. So what does it do? It opens up the floodgates in terms of emotions. Parents get incredibly emotional because since their children turned 18, they've never gotten a report card on their child, right? Because legally they don't get one. And here is the report card from the highest level of a company. So I would say most of the parents who got the letter have framed the letter and put it in their living room. Other parents make hundreds of copies of it and distribute it to family and friends. Distribute it generously to family and friends. But I tell you the biggest benefit of this. If my executive goes home and says one negative thing about me, The parent goes, not a chance, not a chance. And even greater, I keep a running dialogue with some of the parents. They'll go on store visits and they'll take pictures of themselves in front of a Pepsi counter or a Frito-Lay counter. Something they'll say it's not working or is working, and I get all these pictures. Now, the executives hate it because they go, she's now got an independent line of communication with our parents. But you know what? That's just fine. I kind of like it.
I think there may be a new idea how to manage Friðjón in this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, definitely one way of monitoring actually, you know, when he talked badly about Paul.
So should your direct reports be expecting letters?
Yeah,
of
it's a
their
fantastic
parents?
idea. I'm already writing it. So
It's a great idea.
You got to feel it here, though.
yeah, okay.
You
It's
gotta
quite
feel it.
unusual. Do you think that it matters that you're a woman? Are you more likely to do this because you're a
Hala, I
female
don't
CEO?
care. I really don't care. I'm just doing it because I feel it here. And if you really feel emotionally about your employees and really feel that they're a product of their upbringing, write. If you're doing it because somebody else had success with it and you want to write, don't, because you'll see through it
Yeah.
immediately.
Has to be
I had
authentic.
I had an interesting experience where we were trying to recruit a McKinsey partner, a high-flying McKinsey partner, and he had multiple offers. And he had an offer from PepsiCo, he had an offer from another company up the road, and he was deciding between all of these companies. And during the interview, I asked him about his life, and he was telling me all about it. And I asked him who had the most impact on his life. He said his mom. So I said, where does your mom live? He said, she lives in Atlanta. You know, quietly got her telephone number. And when the guy went to the other company to continue the discussions, I called his mom in Atlanta. And I said to the lady, I said, you know, so-and-so, I want to introduce myself. Your son is interviewing for a job here. She had no clue. I said, but you know, I want to tell you that your son really belongs in our company. And I gave her the reasons why. So this poor unsuspecting chap goes back home. And his mom goes, I just got a call from this nice lady from PepsiCo. I think you should join that company.
She probably
He's
said
still
you are.
here. He's still in PepsiCo doing
very good.
exceedingly well, you know, rising very fast in the company. So I tell you, if you feel it right here, Andre, I'll send you a draft of the letter I wrote.
I
Go
know
back.
everybody in here probably has lots more questions. I know I do, but we are coming to the end. So I just wanted to ask, you have about 500 leaders of the Icelandic community sitting here. We're a country that have gone through enormous emotional pain after things that happened here, after the financial collapse. What would you say to the leaders in this room? What advice do you have to them, how they can make sure that their leadership contributes not only to the financial and economic issues we have to solve, but also to, you know, give purpose in their organizations and to this country?
Yeah, I'll leave you with maybe 3 messages. The first is that in today's times, when governments have become less efficient, more resource constrained, more victim of political issues, I think it's very important that private enterprise steps up to the table in big ways. Manage the companies for duration, not just level of performance. Level of performance alone is a selfish way of managing the company. Managing it for level and duration is the only way to manage the company. And so request number 1, focus on, are you going to be around for decades? How should you invest in the company to make sure it's going to be around for decades? And if you did that, it's good for the country too, because you'll worry about, you know, what's the next generation going to do with this company. So that's request 1. Think about the long term and invest for the long term. The second is, in today's world, and I don't know why, corporate leaders who are extremely important to the functioning of any country have gotten too quiet. Corporate leaders need to speak up. If we don't speak up in unison, if we don't speak up on issues, I'm not sure we're going to hold governments accountable. So it's critically important we speak up on the big issues, we speak up with unison, but we speak up and make sure that we demand change. Because if governments make the right changes to provide the right frameworks to allow enterprise to thrive, it can be a virtuous circle between, the governments and companies. And the third is more of a personal request. In today's world, especially where there's pockets of doom and gloom, it's very important that we as corporate leaders demonstrate a sense of optimism. We have to frame things in an optimistic way. Surely there's a dark side to everything, but let's focus on the optimistic rather than just not saying anything, which is the worst of all. An error of omission is worse than an error of commission. So don't not speak up, but speak up optimistically, because optimism breeds optimism. And if you speak up optimistically and make the required changes, I think we have a fighting chance that we can get governments to get on the bandwagon and actually become efficient machines. So those are my 3 simple requests.
It's been educational, inspirational. Thank you, and
Thank
Núi,
you all.
for being with us.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.